Hello, it's Alexandra Weber with Fasteners, and I am joined by a very special guest, our one and only Christina Nishiyama, the VP of People and Culture here at Fasteners. And Christina, we are so excited to be kicking off Women in Construction 2024 and to highlight you as an individual within our own company. And I would love to start off with a few questions. But first, let's take things back to the beginning. Let's hear about your journey into where you are now.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to be here today, talking a little bit more about this important topic. Gosh, as far as my journey is concerned, in the field of human resources, I feel a little bit like I was born into it. Done it for almost 20 years, which is hard to believe. But my journey kind of started at a variety of organizations, large and small. Previously, I worked at a nonprofit where I was the head of HR, the head of finance, kind of did a little bit of everything, wore many hats, which we do in the construction world. Then I had the opportunity to move into a leadership role at MGM, which was very exciting to see such a large organization that really has all these best practices in place. Then once I became a mom, I moved into consulting, really to be able to spend a little bit more time with my kids. Also continued to work for a variety of organizations in HR, one of them being Fasteners. And then through that partnership, ended up becoming the VP People and Culture here, which has been an awesome and exciting journey. It's funny when I think back to my childhood, I feel like HR really came to me when I was probably 12 or 13, working in my very first job at a snack bar at the pool. And it was a really diverse staff. So we had teenagers who got paid, maybe 25 cents an hour. Not sure if that was legal, but that was our wage. And then we had retirees. And so I vividly remember this time where we had this heated all-employee meeting about where we put the water bottles in the supply cabinet. Some people were upset they were too low. Some were upset they were too high. And like through this conversation, listening to it, hearing it, little HR Christina came out. And was kind of like, why are we arguing over this? And so I was always shy and quiet, and I sort of raised my hand and I said, hey, I have an idea. Why don't we put the water bottles in the middle, and why don't we adjust this and that and put the nacho cheese here? And everybody was like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And so kind of at that point, that's when I realized I really want to do something where I can help and support other people, solve problems, and HR was kind of something I always wanted to do.
Now let's take it to current times, Christina, and what does your role look like here at Fasteners?
Yeah, so it's a lot of things. When you think about the field of people and culture, it involves people in so many respects. So we deal with things from the beginning, like hiring employees, getting them in the right position, training them, building them up. There's also sometimes situations where there's challenges at work. If there's something that comes up that's concerning, we deal with investigations. But we also deal with the fun side of things. So how do you keep employees motivated and engaged to do their jobs? So what are some ways where we can ensure that people come to work every day enjoying what they're doing, happy on the job, comfortable, safe on the job? And that just really entails thinking of new strategic initiatives, but also determining what's the pulse every day. Do we go into a branch and see that people maybe need a little extra support, maybe have questions about certain things, and we'll really try to come in and support those initiatives.
So how has Fasteners Workplace really evolved in terms of gender inclusivity?
It's been pretty amazing to see the past couple of years, and I really have to credit you, Alexandra, for really coming in as the first outside salesperson, in this organization, which was a huge leap for us. And I know going back probably 5 or 6 years, I had this conversation with our CEO when I was consulting, and it really became a major initiative to increase diversity at the organization. And, we were kind of going back and forth determining how can we really do this? And I really believe that it starts internally. It starts with people like you, really being able to build up and train and coach those people to the positions that they want to thrive in. And then beyond that, you can really look externally and determine, okay, once we have this internal base and people can see this from outside and see what we're doing, how can we recruit those people externally? So now it's awesome to see female salespeople, females working in the warehouse, seeing things that we didn't before, and then continuing to pave that path through women in construction initiatives, Very excited for our third year to be doing an event. So really just kind of continuing to branch out, develop internal groups, and then ways to recruit externally to add more women to the workplace.
Yes. Being in, the HR world, I'm sure you've seen a lot of different scenarios. And when it comes to gender diversity, inclusion, what are some of the obstacles that you've seen encountered in a workplace like a fasteners or within the construction industry, really?
Yeah, I think just generally, it's never been as accepted, so to speak. It's really kind of been a boys' club. So it takes work to really evolve and get into that industry. And I think sometimes there's just a little bit of a lack of empowerment. I've really seen over the past probably 7 to 8 years, just nationwide, there's a little bit more female support system amongst each other. We've kind of seen what we've gone through. We all kind of have these shared experiences, and rather than trying to compete with one another, what can we do to build each other up? So I think sometimes a lot of it is not the skill set, it's not the ability, but it's how do we offer these opportunities for other females to speak up? So simple things like when you have a meeting, having a set agenda where someone can maybe prepare for that meeting in advance. So if they're shy and quiet and not used to speaking up, they can go in there a little bit more prepared. Also doing things like having performance conversations with employees. Because sometimes, again, if it's that boys' club and you're used to kind of talking to that group and getting their feedback, if you have a little bit more of a formal opportunity, maybe you can hear a voice that you didn't before. And a big part of it too is confidence. And it's taken me, years and years, and it's a continued journey to build that. But just continuing to walk every day in with that confidence, knowing that you can do it. It's not a skill, it's not an ability, it's just how much you believe in yourself.
Now, when it comes to the recruiting process internally, what are some things that you were looking for or that you kind of keep an eye on in terms of staying out of gender bias when looking for certain roles or certain fits for certain roles?
Yeah, it's something I feel like you have to approach for every position, because I think naturally as humans, whether it's gender or something else, there's just implicit bias, it happens. So you really have to be proactive to ensure you're not doing it. But one thing I've especially noticed for females is, a lot of times they're caregivers, whether they're raising children, moving with a spouse who's in the military, or taking care of an elderly parent, they'll have these gaps in their resume. And you'll see that resume, you look at it for 5 seconds and you're like, oh, okay, there's too many gaps, they're not a fit. But then you really have to go back and think, okay, maybe they added some information about taking care of a child, taking care of an ill parent. Personally, as a mom, I think that's one of the hardest jobs is caregiving. So, talk about something that builds life skills. So you really have to look at those resumes and not just take them at face value, but give an opportunity for an interview to learn a little bit more about that person. I think that's really important. Also, something I know that we looked at is in our warehouse, initially we had a requirement, you have to be able to lift 50 pounds if you want to work in our warehouse. And I think sometimes that was a little bit of a deterrent. Not that, strong females, of course we can lift 50 pounds. But I think really emphasizing that, realistically, a lot of our products are 25 pounds or less. We're not doing that 50 pounds a whole lot. So how can that also enhance diversity, gender diversity, also disability diversity into our workplace?
Christina, thank you so much for giving us some insight on your role. But I would love for you to share that fun fact about yourself, that you actually have a doctorate, and using that information and that education that you received within receiving that degree, how has that helped you here?
Yeah. So I am a doctor. It was a journey. I probably have wanted to do it since I was 20, but didn't get around to it till 20 years later. When I had 2 kids, started when my little one was a baby. So it was definitely a process, but something I'm just so proud of accomplishing. It definitely helps from the perspective of research, because that's a lot of what the doctorate focuses on, is academic research and kind of knowing the newest and the latest and the greatest trends. And my focus was on learning and development. So that really has supported ideas that I have for this organization, especially in that area, and also a new way to look at things sometimes. So not just drawing on, oh, okay, I've done this for 20 years, this is what I did at this position, and this is what we should do now. But it's kind of trying to put on that different hat and say, what does the research say? What's another way that we could maybe approach this or think about it or be a little bit more innovative?
Now, lastly, I want to kind of take it back to the beginning, back to 12-year-old Christina. What would you tell yourself at that time as a young woman, knowing the potential that's out there, and maybe other 12-year-olds who are interested in pursuing different dreams and visions and career goals? What would you tell yourself at that age to really empower yourself to be where you're at now?
Yeah, I would definitely tell myself to speak up and be more confident. You know, I think that was always a struggle for me. You know, I even look back into my 20s where I escalated into higher level positions, but I was still, as the one female executive, you know, the one getting coffee and just quietly doing that for people because they're like, Christina, get us coffee. And, you know, looking back, that's something that I probably would have put my foot down a little bit more to kind of respect my power and respect, you know, the work that I've put in to get to that position. So I would just say, always try to do your best to be confident and support your sisters around you. As a mom, it's hard. I'm trying to raise my girls with those same kind of affirmations, but, you know, not competing against your fellow female, but like, how can you also build that woman up, you know, to the same level or a greater level as you.
Yes, and you are always great about that, and I learned so much from you, and again, appreciate this time that we've had to learn more about you and more about your journey, and really to celebrate you not only as, you know, VP of People and Culture, but also as a mom and also as a doctor and also, you know, as a fellow colleague, as a fellow woman within this industry. So thank you for helping us celebrate women in construction. We really look forward to having you continue to follow along the different journeys of the women that we plan on highlighting this week as we celebrate Women in Construction 2024.